Well, a lot of what we're looking for is going to be listed on these posters up here. We're going to do a live cell analysis and what's called a coagulation morphology analysis, a dry cell test. So we'll take 2 samples, but I should only have to prick your finger once. To do that, we're going to use what's called a dark field filter. It's this right here. This gives us advantage for certain things, seeing certain things in your blood, especially if you're looking for microorganisms. So, you know, we don't know what we don't know. It's kind of nice to do a little survey and just see what shows up. And we'll kind of go through that. Thanks for the pathology report, by the way. Excuse me. I think that kind of confirms what we're looking at cancer-wise. Now, typically with the type of cancer you've been diagnosed with, you wouldn't see any like circulating tumor cells in here.
Oh, really?
No, because your body goes to great lengths to encapsulate the cancer, right? So what we're looking for is secondary evidence of like chemical exposures or microorganisms or anything that could be contributing to the growth of the cancer, or anything that could be detracting from your immune system's ability to fight it. So we're looking for all those things, basically. I'm going to borrow your finger real quick and we'll just clean it off. Collect our sample. 3, 2, 1. That one we put under a little cover slip. That preserves the sample. And then this next one, since we're going to let it dry anyway, all we do is just let gravity do the work. Try and get as many out here as we can. That's it.
Okay.
There we go. So, those are your red blood cells. All those little bubbles. Sorry, that's my son, Jag. That right there looks like a piece of cholesterol. Yep, it's a piece of cholesterol. We'll kind of look around here a little bit, do a survey, see what we see. We can also, we'll take a closer look at them too, but we can also look at your neutrophils, your white blood cells, which when I lower the light are the ones that kind of pop, like that. I'd say overall, I'll survey the sample a little more, but overall it looks like your white count is actually a little low. Normally, if we take any given section of the sample at times 40, which is what we're on right now, and we lower the light, we should see between 15 and 25 neutrophils. And in this section, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We really only see about 9, and as I've looked around, that seems pretty consistent. But we see some areas that have a little more. We could cherry pick it probably to get it up to where it needs to be, but overall it's probably a little low. That's the edge of the sample right here. So we'll kind of zoom back in over here. Pop the light up again and just look around. So these little half moons are a little oddly shaped. Those are just air bubbles, pockets of air that when you drop the cover slip on the slide get caught in there. So you don't have any half moons floating around in your blood or anything like that. Looks like, now this is the one area where I'm a little deficient. I'm pretty severely colorblind. But this little thing right here,
looks orange or red.
yeah, a little orangish red color. That's what I was assuming. If we lower the light, it's a little easier to see. Those are uric acid crystals. They tend to build up in the joints. That's this one right here. And there are, a lot of times you can get symptoms of arthritis if you have enough of those. But they also, in general, they pertain to poor protein digestion. We kind of talked a little bit about optimizing that last time.
Yeah.
But the more of that we see, the more evidence there is of your body just not breaking down proteins as efficiently as we would like.
Okay.
This is by no means terrible. Looking at this sample, I've seen much worse. But if you get enough uric acid built up in joints, you actually get gout. So that's not pleasant. Yeah.
Would that be, so like if she was in a more acidic state, is that something more you would see, or is that not relative?
Well, you'd probably see more of it, but what it really pertains to is her ability to break down proteins. So the more of that we can facilitate, the better.
How do we facilitate that?
Well, we can use certain digestive enzymes, and then we can optimize your protein digestion to your blood type. So there's that too. And there are certain applications in TKM that we can do that focus more on enzyme production and breaking down your food. So that could be useful as well.
Protease is something that he sent me home with yesterday.
Protease is amazing.
Protease,
Yeah, yeah. So, do you know what the dosage was for?
Look it up. It was Nature's Sunshine is the brand.
Okay. So most of the time, this varies a little bit from person to person, but with a protein-rich meal, I would be aiming for something like 250 to 500, anywhere between 250 and 500 milligrams of protease and or bromelain.
Okay.
If you need help breaking down protein, that's a good way to get it done.
I also had Hannah got me digestive enzymes too. I haven't started using them.
Yeah, yeah. Could be useful. Yeah. So one of the other things we can see, and remember my job is to talk about the things going wrong, not the things going right. But one of my biggest concerns for you is actually mechanical, right? It's dilating those microcapillaries, making sure that we get the lymph moving like it should be, right? And one of the things that can really gum that up is, now this isn't everywhere in your sample, but if we look throughout the sample, we see these areas in the background, and I'll go ahead and zoom in again so it's easier to see.
It's like hairy.
Yeah, where it looks like crabgrass or hair in the background. That's spicules and fibrin, which are toxins that have backed up into your microcapillaries and tend to clog them up.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we're getting those dilated as much as possible. There's another product that I like to use for this purpose, and I think just to help clean up your microcapillaries, and especially in addition to the sauna that we talked about last time, we would use a product called lumbrokinase. And did I mention that to you guys last time around? I don't recall. Okay, we'll get into it more kind of at the end of all of this, but the goal would be to use that lumbrokinase to eat up the spicules and fibrin that we see, and just to clean your microcapillaries in general.
Okay.
I think is really important, because we want your immune cells to be going to the site of the tumor, fighting that rather than mucked up with all this, trying to take care of it. When I looked over your pathology report, I know that you're estrogen receptor site positive, negative rather, technically.
Yeah, it's very low.
Right, but a lot of people might say, oh, like, you don't have to use lumbrokinase, you should use nattokinase. I'm kind of splitting hairs here, but the reason we would want to use lumbrokinase is because if you have even something that's weakly estrogen receptor site positive, you don't really want to include a lot of soy in your diet, because that would increase your estrogen, right? And it would technically give more fuel, or could give more fuel to the cancer.
Okay.
So nattokinase comes from soy. It's a fermented soy product.
Yeah.
Lumbar kinase does not. It actually is ground up earthworms.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
it's when you look it up, you know, the chemical compound will be derived from that, but it works really well for the purpose of cleaning your microcapillaries, arguably even better than nattokinase, and it's not from soy.
Okay.
So any of my clients with breast cancer, I tend to lean way more towards the lumbar kinase than the nattokinase. So just wanted to throw that out there because
What are the little bitty things that...
these
Yeah.
So those are protids. Those are tiny little microorganisms that cart nutrients back and forth between your blood and your digestive system. They're supposed to be there. One of the reasons we would want to do a fasting sample is if we don't, the whole background of the sample has got tons of those guys in them. So it kind of obscures other things we might be looking at. And with a fasting sample, we can get an idea of how many there are, and it can tell us certain things about your digestion. Yours look fine. It doesn't look like there's a major issue there. One of the other things I do see, though, that's a little bit concerning, and this kind of goes along with the spicules and fibrin in the background of the sample, is that if we look at your red blood cells themselves, some of them, quite a few of them actually, have this little halo
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
on the inside, and then some of them don't. Some of them look, totally clear. That halo is indicative of a target cell, and the more of that halo you see, the more of a target cell it is. Target cells are cells that are deficient in oxygen. And you don't have any particular issues with asthma or breathing or anything like that. So most of the time, if you have a lot of target cells, it's because when your red blood cells are being made in your bone marrow and you don't have enough iron, they can't properly carry oxygen. And so this suggests that your body's not utilizing, either you're not getting enough dietary iron or your body's not utilizing the iron you're getting. Since we are seeing some spicules and fibrin, some stress coming from the liver, and the carrier protein for iron, which is ferritin, is made in your liver, that's also probably noteworthy. And if there's anything that we can do to help you get your iron levels back up or your ferritin levels back up, we should do that. There's also, you can get that tested conventionally too. You can test your ferritin levels even on a regular CBC. So if you have anything to compare this to, we could definitely do that as well, as to what it's been previously versus what it is now.
I think I just had that done in December.
Okay, cool. Well, we can take a look at that later and see how it compares, because that could be useful. On that,
What about how some of them are linked together?
yeah, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Linked together, you mean kind of like these guys?
What's that big old ball?
This one right here. So that is a immune cell that's on its. Oh no, that's not. I'm sorry. That is a piece of thrombocyte aggregation. Thrombocyte aggregation are clotting factors that activate. Clotting factors that activate when you have blood sugar swings. So there's not a lot of it. It's not something I would be concerned about, but the more of the kind of gray gravel you see in the background, different from this, which is what I was confusing with before, which is an immune cell.
It's like we're filming in water.
Yeah.
In a pond.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's what
because
it
it's
looks
suspended for sure in plasma. Excuse me. But let me see if I can find any more of it, because there's not really a lot, and based on this sample I wasn't super concerned. That also is thrombocyte aggregation, as is that. But if somebody has major blood sugar swing issues, they look a lot bigger, and there's a lot more of them. So that's not something I'm particularly concerned about for her. The only thing I would say is that if you are having blood sugar swings, that also pertains to your protein digestion, because your protein is what kind of keeps your blood sugar stable. So we'll keep that in mind as This kind of just goes back to the microcapillary stress, and I'm being really picky here. But we can see some variance in the size of your red blood cells. There are some of them that look a little bigger, some of them that look a little smaller. If that becomes more pronounced, we would call that anisocytosis, and it would indicate major stress to the thyroid. This hasn't gotten that far, but the reason I bring it up is because if your microcapillaries are gummed up, that can directly affect your thyroid, and that's kind of what we're seeing throughout a lot of the sample. This is not a surprise for me. The spicules and fibrin issue in the background of the sample is what I usually see when someone has a diagnosis like yours.
Okay.
So it's kind of the most common thing we would look for to get cleaned up to try and help get your immune system to recognize the cancer.
Remind me why those are there.
So when your lymphatic system and your microcapillaries aren't properly dilating, right? So they're not expanding like they're supposed to. Toxins toxins that your liver is supposed to filter get clogged up in your microcapillaries instead. And that's a lot of what we're seeing. So anything we can do to help dilate those microcapillaries and eat up the toxins that are gumming that up. We did talk, I don't remember if I mentioned this in as much detail, but I gave you, one of the applications I gave you guys was directly for the lymphatic system. It's that 26 sequence.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons we want to pay so much attention to the lymphatic system is because as with any cancer, breast cancer really does start out as an immunodeficiency. Basically, cells that are replicating improperly are supposed to, when they die, they go into your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system carts them to your spleen picks them over and makes immune cells to directly go after those mutated cells, right? If that process gets short-circuited, then your immune system doesn't really recognize the cancer. And then you get, more accelerated growth, etc. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically clear the path so that your immune cells know, oh, there's cancerous cells here. We need to, we need to clean that up. And likewise, I think this gets missed a lot of time too, is if your microcapillaries and your lymph are clogged up like this, any intervention you might do, whether it's, an alternative therapy or a conventional therapy, well, it has to get to the site of the tumor. And if you imagine like it's got mud caked all around it and nothing can get there, then it doesn't really matter what treatment you do. It's not going to be as effective because it's not going to get to the site of the tumor.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And there's are those little, the ones, the little cells with little spikes, like a spike protein kind of? Like the one up on the top right?
No, spike protein would probably be about a couple thousand times smaller than that.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking on a micro scale, and that would be looking on a nano scale. Just like a red blood cell is roughly 8 microns across. And that would be like 1 micrometer, right? The average virus is about 1,000 times smaller than that. And the spike protein produced by that virus is going to be even exponentially smaller. So there's no way to directly observe that with any, to my knowledge at least, with any type of light microscopy. But you can use other techniques to find out if they're there. It is funny, and we'll find out if we see this in your sample or not, but there are microorganisms that often appear when we pop open the cells to look for them. We'll do that here in a minute. Those microorganisms may be present, so that is right there, the one you were looking at. That's a periodicized red blood cell, which means critters have gotten in there and are stealing nutrients from the cell. We'll look for more of those, but if we're talking about scale, a lot of times, we'll see maybe a little wormy critter swimming around in here, and I'll have a client go, oh my gosh, yeah, like I saw those in my stool or whatever. And I'm like, well, we're looking 1,600 times beyond what the naked eye can see. Yeah. So I know it looks big on the monitor, but you didn't see that. Yeah. You saw something, probably, but it wasn't one of these guys. Yeah. So it is hard to kind of get the scales of everything in your head, you know, of like how big or how small these things are. I did want to mention something, because you mentioned spike protein, but just talking about protein in general, you'll notice that a lot of these cells are moving, right? They're kind of floating around. And then you see other cells that instead of being a spherical shape, they make this little teardrop, right? They actually look like they're tethered on a balloon, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to jiggle the sample ever so slightly to get the cells moving more. And I want you guys to note which cells move and then which cells actually kind of stretch like a balloon and then go back to their original position. So we're going to do that. So you see the difference? I'll do it again.
I saw a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
The round ones that are moving.
So the round ones are moving, and then the other ones kind of are tethered.
Yeah.
You can't really see what they're tethered to, but they're tethered. They go back to their original location.
Yeah.
All the ones that are tethered to unutilized protein from yesterday. And the reason I know it's from yesterday is because you didn't eat this morning, right? So that actually tells us that there are proteins in your sample that are still not broken down, still not being utilized from what you ate yesterday at the latest. Could be even earlier than that, but that goes back to protease and other things to help you break down your proteins better. We're going to zoom in again and look at some of those periodized cells. I misspoke earlier. Now we're 1,600 times beyond what the naked eye can see. Before, it was more like 1,000. So, when we're looking at a periodized cell, we're looking at one like that. See how it's got those little wiggly edges? Those are actually microorganisms that are burrowing into the cell and stealing nutrients and causing mischief. I wonder how big of a problem that is. I don't know yet. We're going to pop open your cells and see if we can find more of those guys here in a minute. But seeing periodized cells and a lower immune count is definitely concerning for your immune system. We would want your immune cells to be reacting to those, to going after them. And that goes back to my original concern of immunodeficiency, which is not unique to you. It's pretty much my concern for anyone with a cancer diagnosis is why isn't the immune system doing what it's supposed to begin with? Yeah. So we're just going to, it's very easy at this magnification also to see the difference between a target cell and an oxygenated one, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much every process in your body requires oxygen to function properly. So we want to make sure that your cells are carrying oxygen as much as they ought to be.
What's up with the cell up there that's got like
rough edges? Yeah, that's called a bottle cap cell is the colloquial term that we use. Yeah, but it's actually called a poikilocyte, which is a cell that's been roughed up going through microcapillaries. And if we see a lot of those, it's usually related to the person's kidney function. We don't see enough of them for that to be an issue, other than it's just noteworthy that we're trying to get blood flow through microcapillaries. A lot of microcapillaries are so small that your red blood cells are literally moving single file through them. And if those microcapillaries are not dilating properly, the cell will actually get damaged as it goes through the capillaries. And that's what we're seeing. Hello. can definitely tell versus the average American diet, etc., that you guys have definitely done pretty good.
Yeah.
What's up, Nate? Oh, okay. It's good to see you.
I could not sleep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had
Me neither.
Dreams.
Yeah.
Here, James, get me.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby.
And you.
I did?
Yeah, you were snoring all the night.
Yeah, that's my bad. So, taking a closer look at those immune cells, there's a lot of things we can look for. I'm kind of starting probably at the worst end of this. But this guy is basically a non-viable neutrophil. What we want to see in those neutrophils is 3 to 5 nuclei, which are dark spots. He's got one big one that's basically the whole thing. We want it to be a spherical shape and we want it to be moving around. It's none of those things. So I'm gonna zoom out again a little bit, and we're gonna look for other immune cells and see if we can find any that look healthier than that guy. These are also extremely unhealthy neutrophils for the same reason. This is 2 different neutrophils. They're basically, I don't have a dark field sample to show to you, but this is the bright field version. It's basically just an empty neutrophil. The immune cell isn't doing its job, which is what we thought, going into this. But this is confirmation that those cells are not doing what they're supposed to be. That is a healthy one. That's what we want them to look like. 3 to 5 nuclei, nice and spherical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cohesive shape,
Yeah.
right? That guy's working for you.
And that's a neutrophil?
Yeah.
What is a neutrophil?
It's the basic janitor of your immune system.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the part of your body's generalized immune response. Yeah. And I'm gonna look for more. These guys are a little more middle of the road. Don't really have the spherical shape.
Yeah.
Do have the appropriate number of nuclei. Not all of them have had this, but I do think it's noteworthy that whenever you see a translucent membrane coming off the cell, that there is indicative of a high viral load. And that usually means chronically high viral load, not like, oh, you've got rhinovirus or something, but like Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, herpes virus, viruses that are endogenous to your system that once you get them, you have them, basically for the rest of your life. But that tells us that your body's immune system, at least certain immune cells, would be preoccupied keeping that viral load in check versus doing what we want it to do.